In a world constantly in motion, amidst the noise and haste, there's a beacon of hope and transformation. Welcome to the world of Chris Welton Coaching, where our mission is clear, changing lives one call at a time. Hello, I'm Chris Welton. Life's journey is filled with challenges and opportunities. At Chris Welton Coaching, we're here to guide you through both, whether it's mastering your mindset, overcoming adversity, instilling discipline, or unlocking your highest performance potential. I'm here to support your path to success. My journey has been shaped with unique challenges, from living with a limb difference to surviving the heartache of infant loss, to understanding the complexities of addiction within my own family. These experiences have taught me the undeniable power of resilience, the importance of support, and the transformative impact on compassionate coaching. At Chris Welton Coaching, we believe every interaction is an opportunity for growth and change. With personalized coaching tailored to your specific goals and challenges, we'll work together to unlock your potential and illuminate your path to success. Your journey to transformation starts with a single step. Visit chriswelton.live, so that's chriswelton.live today to embark on your path to personal and professional growth. Chris Welton Coaching, changing lives one call at a time. Welcome to the One Hand at a Time podcast. I'm your host, Chris Welton, and I have another special guest on here today, someone I met, I know you're not going to believe this, but at an event, which seems to be the way my show's worked so far the last 6 months. But I was at an event in Dallas, Texas, and I was introduced to this gentleman. I'm like, man, we got to get you on here to just share some of the disciplines you've had in your life to get to where you are right now. But I want to welcome to the show, UFC veteran, bare knuckles badass, and now Chris, my friend Chris Camozzi.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it. We finally made this happen. And like you said, you come across all these people at events, and then once you start piecing it together, working into what you do, it's pretty cool. You know, like everything can be a networking event.
Yeah. It's so funny. I used to go to the events because I wanted to see so-and-so speak. Like, I want to see that person. But now it's for me, who can I connect with, right? I want to get into the VIP room, the green room, whatever that is, because those are the people I want to build relationships with or learn and grow from. The speaker gets bombarded by people all the time. Like, right. So like, who else do I know that's there? And you happen to be one of those people that we are able to connect. So yeah, we played tag. Those of you who don't know, we've been trying to schedule this for a few months now, but both super busy Chris's here on the show today. So it wasn't the easiest thing in the world, but you know, I was doing some research before we got on here today, just looking at, I found some old YouTube footage of you, like this, almost like a vlog you had from like 7 years ago where you would kind of update and fight stuff. And the one I watched, you're getting ready to go to Sweden, I think, and fight.
Yeah.
So it was like 7 years ago. But how did you get, like, what happened for you to put you into the UFC? I mean, I have a lot of friends that fought in the UFC, and I watched their road on how they got there. I'm just curious, like, what transition? Did you have a wrestling background, Chris, or like what was that? Where'd you come from to get in UFC?
Dude, I grew up wrestling, but I wouldn't call myself like a great wrestler. You know, I did pretty good in high school, but nothing, I wasn't even state champion or anything like that. And I wasn't good enough to wrestle in college, at least not like a big university that you'd hear of. So wrestler, I use that lightly. But I've always liked competition. I've liked every sport. I've always gravitated towards contact sports more. And I was just kind of like a rough and rowdy kid. Of course, I did get into like a lot of fights growing up, which is kind of the stereotype, I guess. And from there, I actually just started training for fun. I was working a job that I hated. And some guys that I went to high school with, that I wrestled with, called me one day and they're like, hey, we started doing this thing called jiu-jitsu. And I knew what it was. I watched the early UFCs, but they were like, you should come to this gym and try it out. And I didn't realize back then, I'd watched the fights and stuff, but I didn't know that you could actually like train. I never thought about how those guys even got into there. I thought they came from the karate gyms and stuff. Not that there were MMA gyms already. And so I went, and literally day one, I signed up and I started going every day.
Yeah, and was it a long journey to get that call up to the UFC, or like I said, I have friends of mine that had some really long journeys to get there, and then I have a couple that like were able. My friend Matt, Matt Mitrione.
Yeah, Matt's a good brother.
So Matt his journey wasn't that long. He was training locally in Indianapolis where I live with guys like Jake O'Brien and Chris Lytle and all those guys. And then was able to get on the show, right? Like was able to get on the Ultimate Fighter show. And that was kind of his pathway there. But I'm just curious, were you on on that circuit for a long time? Like the minor league type of circuit, or what was your journey from there?
Yeah. So to me, it was long, but when I look back, I'm like, man, I think I did that pretty quick. But it was a different time too. I mean, I watch the fights now, not to sound like the old guy here talking, because I don't feel that old, but watching even the local shows now, like the level of talent is insane compared to when I started. You could kind of get by with knowing one discipline still back then. That was 2005, I think, was when I started training. Mm-hmm. The Ultimate Fighter wasn't even out yet, at least when I first started training. But yeah, I did progress. I fought on like the local circuit, then regional. I started going to Canada and fighting on a bigger show. And then I ended up getting on the Ultimate Fighter. So that was 2010. So about 4 years. So
5 years before you got to the Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah, 5 years from like day one in the gym. I would say 4 years as a pro, and then on the Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah. I mean, what a cool way to build out a strategy for a company, right? Like the Ultimate Fighter was really what was the rebirth of the UFC, right? Like, I mean, to get the excitement of the fans, because I remember I was coaching Little League football when it first came on, and all the dads, we'd talk after practice, you watch Ultimate Fighter tonight? You watch Ultimate Fighter tonight? And you see and I love what you talked about, the level of talent then compared to now. When I first became a UFC fan, you know, you had guys like Arlovsky, like he would just get destroyed today in the UFC, like by like almost everybody. Like there's no skill set there. And was it Tim Silva? Is that the heavyweight? Yeah, like he would just get in today's fighting, it's a different sport. One of my favorite fighters, Chuck Liddell. Love Chuck, but not in today's game, right?
Yeah.
On how it's evolved.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, because like even at my gym now, we have kids that you can start as early as 4 doing jiu-jitsu and stuff. Obviously, they're not punching each other in the head, but these kids know arm bars, they know triangles, they know everything. I'm watching like 6-year-olds do some like stuff I didn't learn until I was like 30, you know? It's nuts.
Yeah. It's amazing how fast the evolution of the young guy is in this sport. And when I talked to some friends recently, I was talking about you were going to come on. I said, I feel that the MMA fighters are the best athletes in the world. Like, I mean, I just don't think there's any better athlete on the planet than a true MMA fighter, because you have to have so many disciplines.
It is.
And then you got to worry about making weight.
Yeah.
Like the hockey and NFL players, they aren't making weight. like they're not cutting 18, 20 pounds before they go get into a cage. So it's like all the disciplines have to be met, right?
Yeah. And I've still struggled with that. I don't think anybody's ever come up with the perfect formula, you know, because a common saying, you know, for everybody, but big in MMA is like, there's not enough hours in the day, right? Because I have to, leading up to an MMA fight, I've got to do jiu-jitsu. I've got to do like kickboxing or Muay Thai. Sometimes you do boxing separate because they're different forms, right? Wrestling, strength and conditioning. Then you got to do your cardio, but then you've got to recover. You know, everybody's like, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do this. There's so much coming at you, and then dieting on top of that, making your food. And I know people listening are like, oh, that sucks to work out all day. It doesn't suck. It's just hard to have enough time where you have enough energy to even do all of these. Because energy is what we're lacking, you know? By the end of the day, you are smoked, you're tired. When you look at your schedule and you're like, well, how do I add in this? You know, like for me, for example, I wanted to get better at boxing at a point in my career. So I was like, I'm going to go to a boxing coach. But where do I fit that into my current competition schedule right now? I got to add in another, 2 to 3 days a week, drive time, everything. It gets to be, you got to become a master of your schedule, even though most athletes aren't.
Yeah. I now that you say that, I'm just thinking about it. Do you tailor make your training camp though? Like if you got a guy you're going to fight that's like super strong in jiu-jitsu, are you going to focus more on jiu-jitsu before you get to that fight? Or are you going to do your normal training like you would so you're just well-versed across the board?
I'm a little different. I would say I don't. Like, say I'm fighting a really good jiu-jitsu guy. One thing that I've always gone back and forth with the coaches is sometimes I think that if I focus on what you're good at, then I get away from what I'm good at. And then I start, it's like manifesting it. The more I think about, like, don't get taken down, don't get taken down, get taken down, I'm probably going to get taken down. Or if I just clear my head of that, I go in and like do me, and I try to make sure I'm the best me to an extent. Now, there are certain things when we're breaking down tape of an opponent, we'll watch and we look for tendencies, right? What do they do over and over and over again? Because tendencies, there's a habit, So if I can catch on to your habits, then I can start to know what to look for. But just saying like, you're better than me on the ground, I should do a bunch of jiu-jitsu is like, I grew up wrestling, but I wasn't a Division I college wrestler. So if I'm fighting one of those guys, it doesn't matter how much wrestling I do. I'm not going to catch up to them.
No.
But I can minimize some of the stuff by, little things that they do that I can capitalize on.
Yeah, you can just work on your counter strike a little bit there. You're not going to spend a lot of time doing the rest of it, right? Like, I mean, I'm thinking about that, and it's like, yeah, if I focus all on jiu-jitsu, then if I'm a great stand-up guy, maybe there's some holes in my stand-up, and he's been preparing his stand-up the whole time. like what's going to happen next with that, right?
Yeah, and then you're just focused on it, so it becomes more of a reality the more you focus on it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I love that. I'm a big guy in manifesting stuff.
Same.
Like, I spend a lot of time every day focused on where I want to go in my life and my business and my family and just everything. And what you realize is that you're doing it whether you're focusing on it or not, because most of the time you're focusing on all the bad shit that could happen.
Yeah,
and you're bringing all the bad shit. Because I'm like, man, once I realized that, I felt like I had a massive advantage over the competition.
Yeah.
Like, there was nothing like, I feel like when I focus on something, I can accomplish it. I mean, like, you put it in front of me, I can figure it out, right? Like, I understand it. So what about going from UFC and then to bare knuckles? I mean, that seems to be somewhere you've spent some time. And I don't know, like, I'm not a fighter. Fighting was never my thing. I grew up in a neighborhood where there was a lot of fights. I just didn't have to really do it. I was a big guy and I could kind of move my way through things. My buddies that were fighters, like, they were always getting in fights growing up. But bare knuckles, ouch, bro. Like, I just, like, all I can think about is, man, like, there's no, like that sound, man, when someone connects with somebody's jaw, because I've seen plenty of those street fights. It's just like, holy shit. Like,
yeah.
I mean, what made you want to go in that direction?
To be fully transparent and honest, I would say timing and money.
Yeah.
But I also liked it, so since BKFC came out, I feel like they, bare knuckle boxing has been around it was around for a long, long time ago. And then it died out and BKFC brought it back. And from the time they brought it back, I started watching it and being like, wow, this is cool. Like, one, it's the shock value, right? I've always been kind of attracted to the things that other people won't do. That way when I'm old, I've got a bunch of stuff to brag about. Like, I wasn't in the military or anything, so I can just, when I'm an old man with, the same old stories, somebody can be like, Grandpa, you already told us that. But at least I got something cool to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say timing and money, because to me, honestly, it doesn't feel that much different. Now, I don't know if I'm just weird, or the first time I got hit in a BKFC fight, I was like, all right, it feels the same as MMA for the most part. Because in MMA, like, I have a glove on, right? But I have a 4-ounce glove. I've never gone into like the UFC and been like, thank God he's got gloves on. Because under that glove, they have, tape and gauze. And I mean, they wrap those things to where you feel like you could punch through walls anyway. I think you can hit harder with the gloves and tape and everything on than without them. With bare knuckle, I have to be really precise. I can't just, even though you do see it, you see a lot of these guys break their hands, but they'll swing wild all over the place. Where I've been focusing on, like, I need to land like my knuckle flush in order to not break my hand. So there's a ton of time that goes into that. And I can't just, throw a body shot, hook to your body. If I catch the bottom of your elbow or something, my hand will shatter. So it's a game of like millimeters. It's kind of what I say. Football's a game of inches. Bare knuckle's like a game of millimeters. Because if I barely miss, that's the difference between breaking my hand or not.
I didn't even think of it that way, but now that you're saying it, I'm like, man, yeah, you have more confidence your hand's going to be protected. So you don't really, you don't really care where you connect with somebody in UFC. Like there's a couple spots you don't hit somebody, but all in all, you're protecting your hand. The compression is going to be even across your knuckles most of the time. Yeah, I've seen people break their hands. I can't remember. There was a boxer out of he was a lightweight out of California. Those guys up in like the Northern California area. Favor.
Oh, Uriah Faber. Yeah, he broke both.
Yeah, he broke both his hands. Yeah, in one fight, which was the craziest thing I've ever heard of.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to stay on the fighting just a little bit more. Than I want to get into the business side of things because that's kind of how we connected. I'm not in the fight game. We're in the business game. We connected at a business type of event.
Today's episode is brought to you by the One Jordan Book, a riveting masterpiece by best-selling author Chris Welton. Dive into a journey of resilience, strategy, and transformation with One Jordan. Pick up your copy today by going to onejordanbook.com. That's onejordanbook.com, the sponsor of today's storytelling.
So UFC, how do you feel about like what the trajectory now, and like what do you feel that's with how the UFC is? I mean, I'm a big Dana White fan. I don't get paid by Dana White, never have. I just like I like the fact that he doesn't fucking care. Like, you know what I mean? Like he just like, fuck you, like whatever. But as a fighter, and this isn't here to jam you up. So if you feel uncomfortable about answering these questions, You don't need to do that.
No, it's horrible.
Like how do you feel about the relationship with the UFC and their fighters and how it's evolved?
It's tough. So my personal perspective is, would I want to make more money? Of course, everybody wants to make more money. I could walk around. I'm in a business complex right now at my office. If I went to every office, everybody there wants to make more money. The UFC could do a better split, like revenue split with the fighters. But for me, they've always been great. I enjoyed dealing with Dana. He was always good to me. And unlike you, I was paid by Dana, but I was also technically fired by Dana, when the UFC released me. But I still don't have anything bad to say about him. It's business. They gave me fights. It was my job to win them, to stay, and I ended up on a losing streak, so I was released. But I don't blame that on anybody else. I think that what they've done to grow the sport has been amazing. Like the fact that they took it from nothing to, one of the biggest sports organizations in the world now is nothing short of amazing. I mean, that. Anybody who has any idea on business knows that. And you have to be a little bit frugal sometimes to get that kind of growth. I would just say for me, dealing with the UFC was always great. Like they're still the best organization in the world, no matter who I fight for. Medical wise, as far as scheduling wise, if you need something and it's fight week, they will take care of it. Like it is what professional sports, or what I imagine professional sports is like. Because I've never played, in the NFL or anything where those guys have chefs and they have team accountants or whatever. They have everything they need. The UFC is kind of like that. And we don't know that much about that stuff in fighting. Fighting has been kind of like a blue collar sport forever. But yeah, I would say for me, I love what they've done, and I'm honored to be a part of it, a small part of it. And I'm excited to see where it goes in the future, honestly. Like I said, we have these little kids now. The level of fighting in 15 years is going to be insane.
I agree. I mean, it just keeps getting like, what's been for the biggest, I think, move is I remember women in UFC to where they are now.
Yeah. Like
Ronda Rousey, love her, just her demeanor, who she is. Not like you wouldn't even know who Ronda Rousey was today if she showed up. Like it's a different game, right? I mean, they're fighting at such a high level. Was it that crazy in the Ultimate Fighter house? Was it just absolutely nuts like it looks like it on TV?
So I was fortunate and unfortunate. My time on the Ultimate Fighter as a contestant was pretty short. So I was on season 11, and we didn't know if we had to fight to get in the house or not when we were going to Vegas. We just knew you're getting on the plane this day. you'll find out the rest from there. But when I showed up at the airport, I saw that I had a automatic return ticket for like 3 days from then. So I was like, okay, I'm fighting when I get there. And these tickets are all pre-booked for everybody that's going home. So it was right about there I started mentally preparing for it. And then I had a all-out battle. It was the season where Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz were the coaches.
Yeah.
And the fights on The Ultimate Fighter are 2 5-minute rounds with 1 overtime round if it's a draw. So we fought the 2 rounds. It was a draw. So we fought a 3rd round, and I won, but I broke his orbital. He broke my jaw. But we didn't know that my jaw was broken. So I got to move into the house, and I'm there for like a week and a half, I think it was. And I couldn't chew anything. You know, I was sparring and stuff, but I kept like having to stop. I'd get hit and like go to my knees for a second. And finally the producer was like, hey, we're going to take you to the doctor because something's going on, right? If you can't train. And so I went, and then that's when we found out my jaw was broken. So long story short, Dana came in and just said, like, you can't continue anymore because we can't license you to fight. So I went home.
Yeah.
And at the time it was like devastating. I thought I lost my biggest opportunity, everything, because they didn't tell me, you know, what was going to happen after that. So some months go by, I'm healed up, and then they ended up having me fight on the season finale in Vegas since I had never technically lost on the show. And then I won that fight and got a contract.
Yeah, those season finales used to be just fun, like just fun, man. Like they were so much fun to watch. And again, I'm not as big a fan anymore because I can't stay up late.
I haven't watched it in a while either.
It's like, dude, I gotta watch them the next day, and you know. But it used to be a big deal. We'd have it, but again, when I had friends that were fighting, right, it was a big deal. Like if they weren't fighting, they would come over to my house. We'd watch fights together, and it was just a big, you know. And Indianapolis was a pretty good hotbed. There was a lot of good fighters in the Indianapolis that area there at the time. So, yeah, we had some good guys.
You said Chris Lytle. I was just with him a couple weeks ago, actually. Great dude.
Yeah. So Chris is like Johnny. I don't know if you ever met a guy named Johnny Reese.
Yeah.
He fought in the UFC like 3 times. He's like one of my best friends.
Oh, okay.
And I was just talking to him. I just texted with him this morning. But so I met Chris through Johnny, and I met all those guys through Johnny. Like Jake, you know, Jake O'Brien is, I'm sure, like he was a heavyweight that just Jake's a beast. But I'm good friends with Jake and Josh, twin brothers. But I just met those guys that way. But it was a cool community to hang out with those guys, and we'd hop on a plane and go to Vegas and go to fights, and you know, it was just a blast. But one more UFC question about fights right now, and then we'll hop into some business stuff.
Here.
What do you think about the McGregor fight coming up?
I was just talking about this morning with some friends. I don't think it's happening anymore, right?
I don't know.
The last I saw, McGregor is kind of disappeared or something. I saw Mike Chandler had posted like he was leaving training camp, going home. He's like, sometimes things are out of your control. And I've heard they've pulled the commercials and everything. So I don't really know what's going on with that. But
yeah, I haven't seen anything. Like I'm glad. I'm afraid for Conor.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm genuinely afraid for him. I think that it's over. I don't think he should fight anymore.
It's tough. I would say it's tough to have that motivation. I mean, I don't know. I'm not Conor Rich, but I like to think if I am, the opportunities and things you have to go do all over the world, it's pretty hard to focus in training camp, I would guess. He doesn't need the money by any means. Now, I'm a competitive person, so I like to think that I would always want to do this, but I don't have a bunch of yachts and can literally go anywhere in the world at any moment. So I think that changes some things. You know, you don't see very many wealthy fighters over the years they always come from nothing, you know, because they're willing to fight for everything when you come from nothing.
Yeah.
But when you have everything, I think you lose the will to fight a little bit.
Yeah, after the injury you had too, you can't. I don't care how tough you are, it's still there. It's still there. That was a nasty, nasty injury, right? Like,
oh yeah,
it's still there, man. Like, you can't remove that from your brain.
Yeah, Chris Weidman is a good friend of mine, and who obviously snapped his leg even worse than McGregor. And we've talked about it. You know, he still thinks about it. He's like, of course I'm going to think about it. It's in my head. It's just overcoming that fear. But It is like,
Yeah.
you're right. It's a mental battle still.
Yeah, it is for sure. So let's transition to the commercial real estate space where you're creating a name for yourself now, and just I'm curious about the disciplines that you learned from being a fighter and the time you had to put in there. How is that helping you be on a track of success in the commercial space?
I would say work ethic, one, because even though I didn't have a full-time job for years and years and years, being a professional fighter, you're kind of accountable for yourself, right? Sure, my coach could yell at me and be like, "You need to be here, you need to do that," but I'm my own boss. I pay my coach, I pay my manager,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm technically the boss. If I don't want to go to practice, I don't have to go to practice. But if I don't want to get beat up on national television, then I should go to practice and train. So over the years of just wanting to be the best, always training to be the best, and being self-accountable, forcing myself to do it has really helped me, because with commercial real estate, I'm my own boss again, and you get what you put in, right? So sure, I could work 1 day a week and 1 hour a week, but I'm not going to sell anything. It's a grind and it's a hustle. So I would say definitely work ethic. And then two, once you fight a grown man on TV that's trying to kill you, there's not too many things that are scarier. So hearing no, calling people cold calls or walking into businesses to introduce yourself. Some people have a real fear of talking to people or hearing the word no. For me, I'm like, well, they're not going to punch me, hopefully. So
Yeah. And if they do, you can probably counter it.
yeah, right. I'll slip it and hit them back.
Yeah.
I would say those are two big things, and then over the years, I've kept a lot of contacts, connections, networking. And once I sat down and realized how many people I know that do own businesses, own buildings, everything, I got to start my career with a pretty full client list right away.
Yeah, I think that there's just like when I was running the mortgage company, I loved to hire athletes. That was I wanted to hire someone who was an athlete, who understood putting in the work, understood that coaching is something that they have to be great. Like they have to listen to people and have disciplines and push themselves. So some of the most successful things I've had as far as individuals I've worked with are people that were athletes. They understand, again, the work ethic. You're right. You nail the work ethic. But they've also got a little bit of savage mentality in them, man. Like, you're not going to beat me, dude. I don't care how long you've been in this business. The hustle I have is real. You're going to turn your back for a second and I'm going to pass you by. Like that's just how it works. And there's so much to be said with the discipline we learn from athletics. And it's, I wrestled with one arm growing up. I wrestled and I played baseball and football and wrestling was incredibly hard with one arm.
Yeah.
It was not easy.
Oh, God, I bet.
I get my ass kicked all the time. But the discipline that I learned from showing up every day and getting back on the mat and just going through the workouts and not being afraid of anybody helped me navigate things later in life. Like, just is what it is, and that athletic background, I'm so pro athletics because of that. Because of the disciplines you learn. My wife was a great athlete and she operates on a different level too. Right. So we have a 6-month-old little boy and I can't wait to get him into sports and because of the discipline. Right. And I have 2 daughters, one that's 31 and one that's 24. And my 31-year-old not into sports. She's a badass entrepreneur. She's got a food truck and she's got a bakery and she's opening a new restaurant later this year. She's killing it in Indianapolis. Awesome. My 25-year-old daughter was a stud athlete. Like she was really good at any sport she tried. She was a 2-time high school All-American cheerleader, which is super hard to do.
Yeah.
But she did it twice. So her discipline that she learned from all of that and danced competitively for 12 years, all those things make her just a beast when it comes to her in the finance industry. She got a finance degree from FSU. She like don't try her, dude. Like she will, she's got that skill set. So what are your current challenges in the market you're in? I mean, what's going on with, I mean, commercial, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, I hear about in the commercial space, a lot of things that are a lot of big leases come and due that, you know, people aren't sure what's going to happen. I'm just curious what your thought is.
Yeah, I would say number one that everybody knows about is the rates right now are higher than they've ever been. We talk about it all the time. Like, you know, clients ask, like, what do you think about this year? Are the rate's going to come down because it's an election year, right? Everybody's trying to buy votes, but that's the one thing that we can't control. So that's the biggest challenge right now, I would say, is financing deals, right? So most investment deals right now are not getting done. It's really hard to find those like high cap rates and pencil out like a solid investment deal just with the rates. So I would say that's the biggest challenge right now, but we get creative, you know, and there's another thing, I won't go into too much of the lingo from bore people, but we're seeing a lot more people do like seller carry. That means you own the building.
Carry the financing.
Yeah, you're the bank, which is a great opportunity for these owners to make, they make all the interest. It's pretty much risk-free because if you default, then I get my building back and I get to keep all the money that, you know, down payment you put, all the interest, all the payments you made, it's all mine, and I get my asset back. But yeah, I would say just the rates, and then a lot of shifts, right? So I do a lot of industrial, and there's a reason that I kind of wanted to focus on industrial. And one, like office space, you know, is dying. Since COVID, so many companies realize that they don't have to have these offices. People can work remote. And then
you go through the tech, if you go through the tech center area in Denver, it is a ghost town, dude. Like my daughter, that's where my 25-year-old lived for a while before she moved back to Indiana. And I would come there to visit her after, like, at the end of COVID.
Yeah.
It's so scary what a ghost town it is.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So I'm sure you're seeing that.
That's where I'm at right now. That's where my office is.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just, that would be the biggest hurdle, I think, right now. And then I'd say we're seeing, like, at least in Colorado, in the Denver area, a big turnover too, because a lot of the people that do own the buildings and stuff all around here are very old, you know? So we're either seeing a lot of sales, like portfolio sales, or we're seeing maybe inherited, right? Some people inherit and then they want to sell. I just closed on a building not too long ago where the girl inherited it and knew nothing about it, didn't want anything to do with it. It was like, I just want to sell it. So we get, you know, we figure out what it's worth, everything, sell it for. We're seeing a lot of it change, I would say. Like the wealth is changing hands.
Yeah, I love the seller carry option, the seller finance. I mean, I think that that's a lot of opportunity for the people who have the cash that own the buildings to leverage it, because there's a lot of good tax benefits for them on that side of it as well. So they don't have to categorize all the capital gains and everything when they carry the notes. So there's a lot of good stuff when it comes to that space. And I'm interested to see what's going to happen with the real estate investment trust, right? I mean, like, there's all these big boys and all of these massive buildings that are empty. and usually the real estate investment trust guys are like, and I don't understand why, but they're like, oh, whatever. Like, I guess they have so much money stuff going on that it doesn't really matter. But boy, it's got to matter at some point soon. I just feel that there's got to be something. And I'll share with you, had the opportunity to be in a room with a couple billionaires at this event last fall, and we were at lunch after the event or during the event. And I didn't speak up at all. There was only like 12 of us in a room, and I was just listening. And I talked to one of the guys, and I said, one of the guys who's a billionaire, and I said, you haven't talked about interest rates. You haven't talked about the White House, the economy, anything, all the stuff that I hear all the time, right? All the chatter. And he looked at me and he said, how did you get here? I said, what do you mean? I said, I flew. He said, did you fly first class? How'd you get here? I said, I flew first class. He goes, yeah. He goes, well, that conversation you're telling me is the conversations people in coach have. I was like, what?
Yeah.
He said, yeah. He said, we don't have those conversations because you know why, Chris? Because I can't control those conversations. I can't control that narrative. Like that's out of my control. What I can control is the people that work for me, their mindset, the things I do every day to make them better, the things I do every day to service my clients, those are the things that I can control. He said, that's why I fly in a G550 here. That's the difference. I was like,
Love that. You know,
but it's true, right? It's so true.
Yeah, because for commercial, it's all a math equation, right? One thing I've learned from doing this and getting to sit with, you know, some really successful people too is I had one guy tell me, he's like, listen, I actually like buying, he's one of our big clients. He's like, I like buying at a high interest rate. And he's like, it's the exact opposite of everybody else, but there's less competition. And he's like, the main thing though is if I can cover the interest rate high, it's only going to go down most likely. He said the problem people have is when they wait for that interest rate to hit, you know, as low as possible, and then they buy. Well, what happens when it goes up a little bit? They're not covering. And I was like, man, I never even thought about that because, you know, since you're a kid, you just hear interest rates, buy when it's low, sell when it's high. But I never thought about like having to be able to cover that. And
yeah, if you can afford it to buy it high, and not need to make income from the property over 3-4 years, you're going to have less competition and better prices. When rates get low, the competition comes out, though everybody wants to be an investor.
Yeah. And
everybody wants to buy property, right?
And these big guys know that they can just refinance, you know, once they drop.
Yeah, no, I love that, man. I love it. So are you licensed just in Colorado, or are you nationwide, or?
Just Colorado. Yeah. You know, down the road, I started in January, and it is, you know, I still feel like I don't know anything in a sense, but I've been learning a ton. And that's the athlete mindset too, is the fact that when I get like hooked on something, like you were saying, like when I see it, so I mean, I'll work all day long, then I go home and then I read about, you know, cap rates and I try to like learn about all these things for down the road where I don't think the outside person does. They clock in, clock out. I've been working 7 days a week, you know, 14 hours a day. If you call me and I'm at home, I did one showing one time. A person was in town for just that day. They called me at like 8 o'clock at night, wanted to see this building, went over there. I don't think the normal people are doing that, but I like making money and I'm competitive, right? I want to be the best. I don't want to be mediocre.
Yeah, that's true. That athlete mindset, and it just falls back to the UFC when you were fighting. Like just because you're done at the gym, your day wasn't over. You had to weigh your food and calculate. You had to really figure out it didn't end. You had to get enough sleep. You had all these things. So that just creates that success map that you're on, or the track you're on right now. Just stick with the stuff that the disciplines you learned from being successful in the fighting game, and transfer that over here, constantly learning while you were watching film people you were going to fight. And you're down, you know what I mean? Now you're watching YouTube videos of people you respect, or people that are in the industry, or listening to audio or whatever that is to learn. And that's the difference.
Yeah. And I would say another thing I could have mentioned back, you know, like with being a fighter and coming into commercial real estate is being humble, right? So, you know, a lot of fighters, and I get this all the time when people don't, and they meet me and they're like, wow, you know what I expected? You know, one, they think you're like a pit bull that you can't be with too many people. You're going to fight somebody in the room. But two, like they think cocky, arrogant, you know, you're the toughest person around. And there are some of those guys, but I would say most of the ones that I know are some of the nicest, like down to earth, pretty humble people. And that comes from, you get your ass kicked every day. Like I've been in the room with a ton of world champions. They're not always the best in the room. They get beat up on days. You know, their training partners don't go tell the internet and the world, like, hey, I just beat up so-and-so, yada, yada, yada. But it's humbling, right? So for me, going forward into like commercial real estate, I also have no problem telling some of these other brokers, or when I talk to people on the phone, if they say something I don't know, I say, hey, listen, you know, I started in January. You've been at this a long time, you know, would you mind rewinding and running me through that? And there'll be like a pause on the phone for a second because they weren't expecting that to be like, can you teach me? They think that, you know everything, hot shot. Like,
no, I love that. That's the same. I mean, I'm the same way with that. Like I want to constantly learn from everybody around me. And that's what that's why I wrote the book One Jordan behind me. That I use that strategy to get in rooms with people and meet people that most people can't. You know what I mean? Like
It's a
I've
genius.
scheduled all these podcasts to be on in July when I'm out in Vegas because they want to know more about the One Jordan strategy.
Yeah.
Like, okay. Like some of the biggest podcasts on the planet have asked me to come out there. Like, which is like, I'm like, yeah, of course.
I love
sure.
that. You got to send.
I'll be there tomorrow. Like, what do you want me? So
you got to send one to Joe Rogan.
Yeah, you know what? I don't have him on my list. My hit list up here, though, I do have Dana White on there. I'm trying to get Dana White's shoe size.
I can
Pat
find that for
McAfee
you.
up there. Yeah, if you could get me Dana White's shoe size, that'd be classic. I asked Flex, and Flex kind of wasn't too comfortable asking him. So I don't know. I thought Flex and him were kind of tight.
Oh, yeah.
But Flex is my guy. He recorded some stuff for me. I've got this online summit that comes out tomorrow, so he actually participated in that, which was pretty cool. But
Oh, nice.
yeah, so man, thanks for taking the time out and coming on, Chris. I just wanted you to get on here. I know we connected in October. I can't wait to be in the same room with you again at some point. I'm sure we're going to be there. I'm sure it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm going to be. Are you going to be AmpCon in Dallas in August?
In August, potentially. Whitney and I want to get back out to him. I took a little hiatus from a lot of stuff, just trying to like focus in and learn, but there's a ton of value to it. And, shout out to Renee Rodriguez, how we met. Great guy,
Yeah.
Great events. Yeah, I definitely want to keep going to him though. Flex was asking the same thing. He's like, when are you guys coming back? We met so many cool people on that trip that I still keep in touch with. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, I've spent a lot of time with Flex down. We were down in Miami together, which was a good event. Just the mastermind was great. And I was just at the mastermind in Scottsdale with Renee like 3 weeks ago, which was really good. I met some more people there, but it's about getting in those rooms to learn, right? I come in as a sponge. Like I'm just like ready to go. Like I want to take it all in. Like just feed me, right? just I can only imagine that's what it's like to go to one of those super high level MMA gyms for the first time. Like I just want to learn what you guys are doing here, right? Like that's
the best way to do it. It's when you walk in acting like you know everything already. Nobody wants to teach you. If you're humble, there's a ton of people that'll teach you in any industry you're in.
Yeah, so true. So true. Yeah, I'm Mr. Humble for sure. I come in and I just want to meet as many people as I can and can make some connections and then get my notepad out and just fill it up.
Yeah.
Just take as many notes as possible so I can be a better version of me, right? I'm not trying to be anybody else. I just want to be a better Chris Welton. So
Absolutely.
But dude, thanks again for coming on, man. I appreciate you. And I can't wait till we connect again soon. Okay.
Definitely. Hey, thank you so much. This was fun.
Thank you for tuning into the One Hand at a Time podcast. Please make sure you like and share the episode. And we'll see you next time here at the One Hand at a Time podcast. Make it a great day.